Hey everyone, how are you doing? Peace be with all the good people out there. I hope you're doing well. So I have great news. I finally reached Mr. Walde Jesus Ammar, who gave me permission to use his book, Eritrea, Root Causes of War and Refugees, for a series. So we will be doing that, God willing, after we finish the journal that we are using right now, which is The Historical Orbit of Eritrea's Agony by Dr. Alam Sagad Abbay. If you remember, I wanted to use Walde Jesus's book before I used the article or the journal by Dr. Alam Sagad Abbay in order to give a story of Eritrea, like a deep, thorough story of the Eritrea as we know it today, and then we can go into the agonies and discuss the agonies that Eritrea goes through and continues to go through using the article that we have been using. So it's okay that it's going to be, the other way around. We get to know, we still learned about the history of Eritrea and its agony, which it faces until now. The other book by Mr. Walde Jesus is a masterpiece of a book, the way this article is a masterpiece of an article. I call it article, but it's a journal. So if I'm not mistaken, it's a journal, not an article. But I mean, I don't know the exact difference. But in any case, both are masterpieces. We're going to learn in that book what in the world is Eritrea. What is Eritrea? What makes it what it became? What makes it what it is? That book by Walde Jesus, that book is the book that made me proud of my roots. That book is what made me proud to be what I call an Eritrean. I don't like using that term because it's a slave name. I don't want to use a slave name. Malcolm X called himself Malcolm X. He changed his name from Malcolm Little to Malcolm X because Little was what was given to him by the slave master, which is true. So he changed his name. Cassius Clay became who we know as Muhammad Ali, Muhammad Ali, because of this. He didn't want to go by his slave name, and he would become angry when people used that word, that name. And so, similarly, I don't want to use the term Eritrean. I don't like that term because an oppressor gave it to me. So for me, the enemy is not only Haile Selassie or Manilik or Mengistu. The enemy is also the Italian. It's the Italian who did to us well, they didn't start it all, but they're the ones who started, this. They continued what other people were already doing because the place was already under issues. But the region, people want our land. What can we say? They want our land. Our land, all of it, Eritrea, Ethiopia, is all rich. And my dream was and still is tribal unity. Tribal unity. What do I mean by tribal unity? I mean that those tribes who have things in common from places like Eritrea, Ethiopia, Sudan, Somalia, these tribes need to be together. It cannot be that we're separated because of nation states. We are Africans. I'm half, but still I'm African and I'm proud. We are Africans. This nation state business is not working. It's not working. We need to have I don't have a problem with a government, but the kingdom thing didn't work for everyone. The system that came post-colonialism didn't work. The first thing we need to do is we need to come together as tribes. That's the first thing. And preserve what we have and build on what we have. That's what we have to do. We have to unite the tribes. And after we unite the tribes, we must come together and discuss our neighborhood. This is what needs to happen. Anyway, so we can talk about more of that later. So I'm happy to say that we're going to go over his book, and that book did give me pride, and It taught me about, who I am and where I come from. It taught me my identity. And I'm happy for that book. That book is an amazing book. I hope I know I'll enjoy it. I hope you enjoy it either as much as me or more. That book is definitely a masterpiece. I was very happy to be able to speak to Walde Jesus. That in itself was a big pleasure for me. He is one of the pioneers of the Eritrean Revolution. A very, very, he's a legend. He's a legend. Walde Jesus is a legend. Yes, so that's the book that we will be using after we finish with Dr. Alam Sagad's text. I hope that after we finish these programs, that we can, especially for those of us who are in the diaspora or who have sincerely good hopes for the future of Eritrea, even for Ethiopia, because we're talking about Eritrea, but still Ethiopia is still part of us. We're still brothers and sisters. We should not divide amongst ourselves over what some stupid politicians want from us. Because as Eritreans, we did have a friendship and as family and the tribal relationship with the Ethiopians, those who became known as Ethiopians. We cannot abandon this and start and flash each other's flags in each other's faces. This is wrong. And for any of you out there who are Muslims, this is haram. It's forbidden. And you know that. It's forbidden. And for any of you who are Christian, it's forbidden. You know that. So, we need to work towards working with good people. People who are not oppressors. I mentioned the other day that Usman Saleh Sabbe, one of the Eritrean, I wouldn't be surprised if I don't think Walde Jesus, I don't doubt Walde Jesus knew Usman Saleh Sabbe. Usman Saleh Sabbe wanted to start what was known as Al-Urwatul Wuthqa, which he did to some degree or to some extent, which was uniting the Muslims of Eritrea and Ethiopia, not with hatred towards the others, just because they were going through similar plight. That's all. So that's what has to happen. We need to reignite the candles of intellect. We cannot run on emotions anymore. So when we get to that text, we're going to be learning a lot of things. We're going to be walking through quite the interesting story. Walde Jesus does a tremendous job at telling the story of Eritrea. Very tremendous job. Okay, may God bless him. So let's continue from where we left off. We left off at the post-federal era. The post-federal era, meaning the post-federal era, not meaning that, the federation is done and we're all happy and we're gonna, enjoy our lives because we already did our 10-year contract with Ethiopia and now we get to break free. No, Ethiopia annulled it. Haile Selassie annulled it. He annulled it, meaning he canceled it. He said, forget this federation. Not that you guys can go. You guys are part of us by force. And on top of that, we talked about Amharanization and how the people were, that the Amhara chauvinism became the catalyst and the cause of the Eritrean nationalism. So that's a combination of the introduction of the journal and what we went over last time. Amharanization made its way into the Eritrean society. Alam Sagad brought up a story about a lady that he met, who was an older lady, and she was angry. The grievances in her were still, even though about something that happened 6 decades ago, she was still disappointed about learning the Amhara chauvinism which took place, and she summarized her grief all using a book called Lema Begabeya. Lema in the Market, which is a book that children had to read. I'm laughing because it's all a children's book, that caused a lot of strife, so, and it was definitely something which is worth being angry over. but because, just a children's book that she told, Alam Sagad, she presented the book as if it had a life of its own, so anyway, if she's still, wherever that woman is, may God bless her, may God bless Dr. Alam Sagad as well. The story, honestly, it's bittersweet, it's funny, but it's sad at the same time because of, the Amhara elites were were terrorists. These people were terrorists. That's honestly the right word. You guys understand, if you understand Amharic and Tigrinya, Ashabbari, that was Ashab. If the noun is Ashabbarannet, that's what it was. It was Ashabbariism, terrorism. Anyways, let us continue. I begin in the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. I praise and I glorify him as he ought to be praised and glorified. So, despite hostility to state policies, which was reflected in the frequent refusal of the youth to salute the Ethiopian flag, there was not a pan-Eritrean identity. Despite the hostility to state policies, which was reflected in the frequent refusal of the youth to salute the Ethiopian flag, there was not a pan-Eritrean identity. It was, therefore, raw emotions. At this time, it was raw emotions that preceded cognition, when the first political entrepreneurs who were lowland Muslims framed the nationalist discourse of the Eritrean Liberation Front as Arabist. So let me go to the footnotes, because someone might say, oh, what's he talking about? Alam Sagad is, so where it says that the youth would refuse to salute the Ethiopian flag can be found in the American Consulate, Asmara, to the Department of State, Washington, D.C. DESP, I believe, stands for Dispatch, I believe. Dispatch, if I'm not mistaken. Dispatch number 79, June 13th, 1957. And then he continues to say, even though this hostility and refusal of the youth to salute the Ethiopian flag existed, there was not a pan-Eritrean identity. So there was no pan-Eritrean identity yet. The Higdefs out there, and maybe others, are saying, that's not true, we're Eritrean, and we're Eritrean since the day God created earth, if they even believe in God. What is the footnote that Dr. Alam Sagad includes? A pan-Eritrean identity does not arise in earnest until the middle of the 1970s, primarily in reaction to the brutal and senseless state behavior. This is what he says. So if someone considers this a bold statement, talk to him. You can rant all you want in the comment box, and I don't say that there is no room for disagreement within reason, but contact the author. If you contact the author, maybe he can help you get matters straight. So people were not calling themselves like this pan-Eritrean nationalism. Even though the Eritrean Liberation Front was known as, Jabhat al-Tahrir al-Eritrea, which means the Eritrean Liberation Front, that would make one think, like myself, that there was an Eritreanism. It was more of a desire to be separate from an entity that once, perhaps it did exist in the ELF. So maybe there was an Eritreanism. But Alam Sagad, I don't underestimate him. There was not a pan-Eritrean identity, he says, and what didn't start until the mid-70s. He says it was raw emotions that preceded cognition, when the first political entrepreneurs who were lowland Muslims framed the nationalist discourse of the Eritrean Liberation Front. For those of you who don't know what the ELF is, Eritrean Liberation Front, it was I would say the second front, the second group which formed in resistance to Ethiopian hostility. The first was the Eritrean Liberation Movement, ELM, which was started in the 50s, maybe late 40s, 50s. It was known as Mahbar Shaw'ate, the group of 7, because I think they would meet in cells of 7. Groups of 7. That's how they used to operate, the ELM. So the lowland Muslims, lowlands meaning areas like Karan, Barka, that area where you find my tribe, the Belen, the Tigray, Bani Amir, who I believe are a subgroup of the Beja, those folks, that's the lowlands. So the Afar are not part of the lowlands. They're Muslim, but they're not in the lowlands. The Saho are not in the lowlands. Rashaida, I don't think are in the lowlands. It's more Blen, Tigray, and Beja. Blen, Tigray, and Beja peoples, Beja groups. So, the first political entrepreneurs who were lowland Muslims framed the nationalist discourse of the Eritrean Liberation Front as Arabist. That's what he's saying. Quote, the leadership of the Eritrean Revolution, in observance of the organic cultural, historical, and political relations that link the Eritrean people with the Arab nation, stressing the common struggle against Zionism, shall reinforce and consolidate the relations of brotherhood and struggle. What's the source of that? It's the Eritrean Liberation Front political program, Second National Congress of the ELF, May 28th, 1975, page 31. The EPLF came after. Sha'biya Jabhatush Sha'biya was the EPLF, which splintered from the ELF. So Isaias Afwerki was part of the ELF. They split away. I encourage you to read Nihnan Ala Manan. If you understand Tigrinya, read Nihnan Ala Manan in Tigrinya. If you understand English, read it in English. Nihnan Ala Manan. NHNAN space Alamanan. ELA, M as in Mary, A, N as in Nancy, A, N as in Nancy again. Alamanan. Nihnan Alamanan. We and our goals. And you will see what the grievances were by the EPLF. To be honest, I agree with a lot of what's in there, except the parts that put religion down and religiosity. They make religion secondary. Someone asked me the other day. Someone commented saying, "Oh, talk about something. Talk about religion." He doesn't want me to talk about politics because he doesn't like what I have to say about politics. That's not going to happen because religion encompasses politics. This is how it goes in Islam. Religion encompasses politics. You told me that Abu Bakr, the person, I'm speaking to him, and whoever else, Abu Bakr and everyone, what were the caliphs? The caliphs, what were they? Politicians. And there's a narration that says that there is a narration, authentic narration, I'll put it in the comment, where the Prophet designated Ali as the caliph. An authentic narration. So why would he designate a caliph? You said that, why would a caliphate exist, period? Why did they do that? Because they were bad people? Of course politics exists in the religion of Islam, but the Islamic government is supposed to be just with all people, so that the Christians don't think that, if we're controlled by Muslims, they're going to kill us and they're going to persecute against us. If they do that, they're not considered Muslims because they would not be going by what the book has commanded them to do, which is to be just and fair towards everyone, including Christians. So the leadership of the leadership of the Eritrean Revolution, in observance of the organic cultural, historical, and political relations that link the Eritrean people with the Arab nation, stressing the common struggle against Zionism, shall reinforce and consolidate the relations of brotherhood and struggle. And that's found in the Eritrean People's Liberation Forces. So the Eritrean People's Liberation Forces, not the front, the forces. By the way, Sabbe was one of the one who I believe he was either the first or one of the first to split from the ELF, and he called his group the ELF PLF or PLF 1, People's Liberation Forces. And then two groups joined him. Isaias, which was Selfinat Innet, and the Hadarib group called Obel. These three groups came together and they formed the EPLF, but Sabbeh wanted nothing to do with it because I believe one of the reasons was because they were socialist Marxists. He didn't want to have anything to do with that. So Sabbeh didn't want to have anything to do with that type of stuff. So you can find that in the Second National Congress of the ELF, May 28th, 1975. The Eritrean Liberation Front Political Program, Second National Congress of the ELF. That's what was said. Indeed, there was confusion as to where, by the way, in Nihnan Alamanan, our goals and our struggles, it mentions going against Zionism towards the end. The EPLF mentioned that. Sha'biya mentioned that. Just FYI. Because some people say the Zionist, the struggle against Zionism is an Arab-Muslim struggle. But the EPLF, which had nothing to do with Islam or Arabism, according to them, they were saying that we're going against Zionism. So, anyway. Indeed, there was confusion as to where the Eritrean identity resided. Arabizing it was an uphill battle since only 0.5% of the population was Arab. 0.5% of the Eritrean population is Arab. Didn't I say in another video, my grandpa used to say, we're not Arabs? We're not Arabs. My father is Arab. Me personally. My father is Arab. And so let's continue, and then I'll tell you something my father told me, my Arab father, about Eritreans. He's friends with them, but let's just continue first. 0.5 of the population was Arab. That was why the Eritrean People's Liberation Front, EPLF, which split from the ELF in the early 1970s, readily disowned Eritrea's Arab identity. They disowned Eritrea's Arab identity. Instead, it exposed the jihadist and pan-Arabist nature of the ELF and rejected that Arabic was the official language of Eritrea. Well, Arabic and Tigrinya were the agreed languages. That was what it was supposed to be. It was Arabic and Tigrinya. These two languages were supposed to be the national language of languages of Eritrea. It didn't work out that way. Amharic came into play, and then after that, now I think it's supposed to be, even until now. If you look at even, I think, the seal or whatever you call that of Eritrea, it's written in Tigrinya or in Ge'ez, but it's Tigrinya, and in Arabic, the Eritrea, the country of Eritrea. Let's see what the footnote says about Arabic, about the EPLF rejecting the Arabic nature and jihadist nature of the ELF. Instead, it exposed the jihadist and pan-Arabist nature of the ELF and rejected that Arabic was the official language of Eritrea. You can find that in Eritrean People's Liberation Forces, Our Struggle and Its Goals. Nihnan Alamanan. Our Struggle and Its Goals. Nihnan Alamanan is we and our goals, but I mean, I guess Our Struggle and Its Goals works. And I believe it was written in maybe 1970 or 71, pages 3 and 20 of that manifesto, if you want to call it that, because it was a kind of like manifesto, just stating what we are about. We, the people who split from the ELF. To be honest with you, many Christians remained with the ELF. Many people who were not Muslim remained with the ELF. Just to tell the truth, there were many of them who remained. I don't know the reasons. I just know that it was true that they stayed. And there were many Christians who did not want to join the EPLF. So there were Christians who left, but they did not want to join the EPLF. They did not want to join Sha'biya. One group is a group that comes to mind, which I think was called Falul. It was a Christian group, but they split from the ELF. From the ELF they split, but they did not join the EPLF, except some of them, I don't know how many, except a group of them, but it was by force. The rest of them fled. So you can read, there's an essay or a paper out there titled The History of the ELF. The History of the ELF. I forget the name of the author, but if you read that book, the cover has a picture of the blue flag with people sitting down on the ground, and the Eritrea. You can't miss it. The history of the ELF, if I'm not mistaken, that's what it's called. It has a picture of a white guy who's Arab holding a camera, so you could see it there. And if you're thinking that, oh, maybe it was written by a Muslim, it was written by someone I believe is a Christian. His name is fully Christian, meaning it's a name that a Muslim would not have, like absolutely would not have, because some names of the Christians we can have. We can have the name Gabriel, for example. That's fine. It means servant of God. There's nothing wrong with having the name Gabriel or Mikael or this. That's fine. Gabriel, nothing wrong with that. Samuel, Daniel, Ephraim. Anyway, so these are all Muslim names as well. So you don't hear them. It has to do with culture, nothing to do with people don't know the religion. So we saw that. We find this, that the jihadist and this Arabist, the EPLF was accusing the ELF of being Arabist and jihadist. If you want to learn more about that, by the way, this whole ELF business, go to ehrea.org. I've mentioned it before, ehrea.org, and you could find different articles all about this stuff, and you could, you can see for yourself what you can make out for yourself. I'm not going to tell you what to think. It's up to you what you want to think, but that's where you could find information about this. However, against the overwhelming historical records, the nationalist narrative of the ELF took even a stranger turn when it claimed that for more than 2,000 years, Eritrea, with its old name Midri Bahri, the land of the sea, was a free self-governing country with its kings Bahri Nagasi, which means kings of the sea. Throughout the past centuries, the Eritrean people have risen up with unity and determination against the attempts of attack on the Eritrean border made by the Aksumite kingdom, Ethiopia. So this was a claim by the ELF. This is a ridiculous claim. And by the way, Walde Jesus goes against these kinds of claims that Eritrea existed forever. I even mentioned that to him. I said, people, they behave as if Eritrea existed forever. Well, De Jesus in his book mentions that to say that Ethiopia, basically, I'm not saying word for word, basically that saying that Ethiopia existed forever is just as untrue as saying Eritrea existed forever. That's not true. So let's see. That you can find in the article, a short historical background of Eritrea, the People's Liberation Forces of the ELF. ND and NP, Research and Documentation Center of Eritrea, Asmara, Eritrea. So they said, let's go over this quote. This is very crazy stuff. If this is something they said, this is ridiculous, preposterous words. That he says the ELF took even a stranger turn when it claimed that for more, I quote, for more than 2,000 years, Eritrea, with its old name Midri Bahri, the land of the sea, was a free self-governing country with its kings Bahri Nagasi, which means king of the sea, throughout the past centuries. Was a free self-governing country with its kings Bahri Nagasi, which means king of the sea. Throughout the past centuries, the Eritrean people have risen up with unity and determination against the attempts of attack on the Eritrean border made by the Aksumite kingdom, Ethiopia. That's not true, because the Afar had a sultanate of their own. There was a small kingdom, small one, I think back when the Tigray and Tigrinya were one, because they used to be one. I don't know about WON, but ONE, they used to be one. And there was a small kingdom called, I think it was called Da'mat, something like that. You can look it up. Apostrophe M as in Mary, T as in Thomas. Da'mat, or not Damot, it's Da'mat or Da'mat. You can look it up. There was a kingdom, but it was tiny. It was on the coast, And I mean, there was no Eritrea that people wish that there was an Eritrea that lived 2,000 years these days. They wish there was an Eritrea which lived to be that, which existed for so long. There was no such thing, whether you like it or not. Same as Ethiopia. There was no Ethiopia that lasted. If you're talking about Ethiopian kingdom, if you're talking about Habasha, if you're talking about Aksum, if you're talking about the land that Aksum had for its whole career, for its whole time as being a kingdom, yes, that's correct. Aksum existed for at least 2,000 years. That is correct. It did. But if you're talking about Ethiopia as what we know it now, meaning with the area where the Sidama live and the area where the Somali region, and if you're talking about, and Gumuz, if you're talking about these areas, then that's not true. There was no such place. There was a kingdom, and that kingdom had its main area, and in its prime, it conquered many other places when it was in its high, and then it was reduced, and then eventually it fell out. That's how what happened. But there was no place called Eritrea or Ethiopia. Let's read one more paragraph and end it there. There's a lot to learn in here. So, on the contrary, the Aksumite civilization was shared by the Trans-Marab region. That's true. With Adulis as its port, the region of today's Eritrea and Tigray was the core of the Aksumite Empire. Adulis was the port of Aksum, but I don't think it was consistently the port of Aksum, consistently. Meaning that they had it for a time, then maybe they lost it. I don't think it was a consistent from beginning to end. I think they had it and then they eventually lost it. There, due to battles and due to fighting and people fighting for that area, for that place. So I don't believe that they had it from beginning to end, Aksum. But they did have it at some point, at least at least one point. Just to be honest, in my understanding. With Adulis as its port, the region of today's Eritrea and Tigray was the core of the Aksumite Empire. As such, Aksum belongs to Eritrea as much as Adulis belongs to Tigray/Ethiopia. As much as Adulis belongs to Tigray/Ethiopia. I want to mention that Dr. Alam Sagad understands what Eritrea is and what Eritrea means. He's not an Amhara chauvinist. No. He is trying to bring back, in my understanding, and I can ask him. He wants to see a kind of a new Aksum. That's what he wants to see, if I'm not mistaken. His main goal, I would say, his main dream is for the Tigrinya to be united. He's not a Agazian. Agazian meaning that group that's made of people who believe that only the Semites are like the same, and you know who I'm talking about. The people who have the red, white, and blue flag, not American, and but they have that red, white, and blue. He's not one of those guys. He has his own approach to the matter. This is based on his understanding. Everybody has a view. Everybody has a view, and we, as long as the aim of a person or group is not to hurt others, or oppress others, or sideline others, or persecute against others, as long as that's not their goal, everyone is entitled to their opinion, and everyone's entitled to their opinion, as long as their opinion does not involve hurting others and oppressing others. If they have an opinion which involves hurting others and oppressing others, then these people should be refuted harshly. But if there's a disagreement amongst people who have different views, so one person has a view, but the other person disagrees, it's a view that he has the right to have. Meaning he has the right to have it, another person doesn't like it, they can engage in a civil, peaceful debate. No fighting, no hurting each other. Civil, peaceful debate. Okay, that's how it works. Civil, peaceful debate. But if the person has some extreme view that we need to invade and we must, hurt people, if this is the goal, this cannot be tolerated. It must be charged at harshly, meaning it must be refuted harshly, but with words. But there's nothing wrong with everyone has an opinion. Everyone can have an opinion. People have the right to, this is what makes, the world, well, the world is under oppression, but this is what would make a healthy world, is when people have different views. This is just how it is. There's one view and there's another view. Al Jazeera, they had a slogan, Al-Ra'yi wal-Ra'yu al-Akhar, the opinion and the other opinion. There's two different opinions, that's it. But they have to be peaceful opinions. They cannot be, they have to be based on, they have to be peaceful. If they're based on evidence or not, that's another story, but peaceful. Because we want peace. Salam. Salam means peace. That's what we say. When we talk to each other, we say salam. Between Muslims and Christians, we say salam. We want peace. Why do we have to keep starting fights? And we're tired of all these fights. Every day there's a new fight. Every single day we run into a new fight. So as such, Aksum belongs to Eritrea as much as Adulis belongs to Tigray, Ethiopia. The emotion-based approach presented feudal and pre-modern Ethiopia as the colonizer of a far more developed, westernized, and advanced Eritrea. So the emotion-based approach presented feudal and pre-modern Ethiopia as the colonizer, meaning the old Ethiopia, the Abyssinia, as the colonizer of a far more developed, westernized, and advanced Eritrea. The zero-sum game, which was first launched by the ELF in 1961, when the first shots of the armed struggle were fired, lasted until 1991. Blinded by raw nationalist emotions, the political entrepreneurs could not ask even the most obvious question of whether secession was in the best interests of the people. They could not ask the question whether if leaving Ethiopia was in the best interests of the people. Is this what will benefit the people? Yes or no? Is this what the people? I mean, they took a vote. There's a 99.8% vote. I know some of the Afar and Kunama, they did not want Eritrea to secede, but there's evidence of that in the UNHCR. There's a group which has evidence of that. So, in any case, so honestly, Aksum was not a peaceful empire. Aksum, if I'm not mistaken, Aksum, like many empires, they forced people into their religion, into Christianity. When Izana, when he became a Christian, Orthodox Christian in the 4th century, that's when it happened. Orthodox Christianity became a religion in the 4th century. It didn't happen before that. Before that, it was some kind of serpent worship. There was no Orthodox Christianity. This came with Frumentius. Frumentius brought Orthodox Christianity with him from the Arab world, from what is known now as the Arab world, from the Phoenician area. Frumentius had a brother named Odysseus. They were both captured when a ship docked at the Eritrean coast, and then they got attacked because they might have had an issue in the past, whatever, and everyone was killed, I believe, except Frumentius and Odysseus. And next thing you know, there was Izana. Izana was not the king yet; his father was. But Izana got influenced by Frumentius, who was a religious figure. He became the not bishop, but I think he became a bishop. I think by he was excited. He took his news to the Church of Alexandria that there's conversions happening, blah blah blah. So they put him in charge of that area, and then Aksum and Christians who came after started being harsh with others and forcing them into Christianity, if I'm not mistaken. It was by force. The obelisks that are in Aksum, the obelisks, those big obelisks. The obelisks on them, if I'm not mistaken, are snakes. There are that's what I've read. I haven't seen it, but there are some serpent, because that's what they used to worship. Do you know that when the Southern Arabians came to the western coast of the Red Sea, if you want to call it the western coast, if you're starting from the Middle East, from West Asia, and if you're starting from the east, it's the west. The coast of the Red Sea, when the Arabs arrived between 500 and 1000 BC, when they arrived, Southern Arabians, when they arrived there, one of the tribes was Habashat, by the way. That was the name. Habashat, Agazian, Sabian. When they arrived, they had their own gods. And their religion, if I'm not mistaken, influenced the people of the locals, if I'm not mistaken. Some have said that's where Ethiopia comes from. Ethiopia means the Lord of the tribes, or the Lord of the groups of the tribes. But some people have argued to say that it means it's the Lord of one of the gods of the because one of them, the name was I forgot the name, but they had names. They had names for their gods, these Southern Arabians, and so did the ancient Abyssinians, or the ancient Abyssinians. Agos, their religion was they were polytheists. They didn't believe in God, most of the people. At least most, if not all, they did not believe in God. So Aksum, in any case, and the kingdoms which came after it, they forced their way on others. This is what happened. So I can understand what Dr. Alam Sagad wants. I can see, that he wants, but if he wants something which is positive for everyone, look, as I said, this is what I want. I want people to live freely, okay? I want Afar and Oromos and Tigrayans and Sahos and Irop and Kunama and Nara and Tigray and Rashaida and everyone in the region. Everyone to live in peace. That's what I want. If there is a government that comes which gives kids the chance to learn, and it gives people the chance to grow, education, food, shelter, the basics. I don't care what we call our land. We can call our land garbage land. I don't care what we call it. I don't care. All I care about is that we have peace and prosperity. I know it sounds repeated, but this is all I want. If this is what Dr. Alam Sagad wants, that's what I want. I don't think his but I can say that the Aksumites, in one way or another, they were chauvinists themselves. In one way or another. Every kingdom is like this. All kingdoms are this way. There a lot of kingdoms, even the many so-called Muslim empires were chauvinists. Turks were chauvinists. The Ottomans, they were chauvinists. He mentions it earlier. Turkification, they were chauvinists. Everyone had a level of chauvinism. The Umayyads had chauvinism. The Abbasids had chauvinism. So anyway, if the goal is for us to have peace in the end, then I'm all for it. I'm for peace. That's what I want. In any case, I'm proud to be who I am. I'm proud to have roots in what is known today as Eritrea. I don't like the name, but I'm proud to have roots there. I'm proud of that. I wish that we can come up with a solution to give peace to Eritreans and to the neighbors. This is what I pray and hope for. That's all I have to say for now. Until then, peace be with you. God bless you. May God protect you. And we'll talk next time and continue. Now I have other things to do, but it was a very enjoyable experience that I had just now. Until then, peace be with you all, with all the good people. Until next time. Thanks for watching.